Hi, I'm Harun, and we're here with Kevin Beck.
Hey, Harun.
To walk you through a new device we just launched, the 13w Yoga. I really believe it's an ideal device for those looking for versatility, durability, upgradability, for future-proofness, and one that delivers an excellent video conferencing experience for hybrid work with full connectivity.
All right.
So, Kevin, where do we want to start?
All right, let's go through this. I've spent some time with this. I've talked to you about it, and I'm really impressed. It's like everything you'd ever want in a laptop, really. It's a 13.3-inch screen, which is worth pointing out is 16 by 10 now.
Right. So tell us about the difference between 16:10 and 16 by 9. Because traditionally, all the devices, in the previous years have come up with the 16 by 9 aspect ratio. So what's the advantage of the 16 by 10?
Okay. So 16 by 9 was something that the industry moved to years ago because it's basically what like a widescreen movie is, right? So you watch widescreen TV, widescreen movies, fills it, but in computers, people have needs above and beyond just consuming video, right? So what we've done is switched this and many of our other systems to 16 by 10, which is the same width, but an additional 11% taller. So you don't lose anything on width, but you get an additional 11% of screen size, so you can scroll through browser pages.
So wouldn't that translate into productivity? So you're able to see more content in the bottom, right?
More on the screen at the same time.
Okay. And I also believe that when you compare a 13-inch device with 16 by 10 to a 14-inch device with 16 by 9, you actually get more vertical space compared to a 14-inch 16 by 9.
Yep,
so,
you do. Okay. You do, absolutely. Right, and of course it is a Yoga.
Correct.
Right?
So what does that mean?
So that means that the models with the Yoga hinge flip 360 degrees around.
Okay.
So what you get is something that works, of course, as a laptop, but also in a stand mode, in a tent mode, and as a tablet. Flips all the way around and becomes a tablet you can hold in your hand and write on.
Okay, that's really versatile.
Yep, and speaking of that, it does also have an integrated digital pin.
Okay.
There's a slot in the system built to hold the pen so that you've got a place to lose it.
I really
put it and not lose it.
Yeah, I really believe that the digital pen has seen a lot of use since since the COVID started. Right now, with the integrated digital pen, you have that flexibility of collaborating with your colleagues. Right? If you're on a Teams environment, for instance, you can share your screen and you can use your screen as a whiteboard basically with the digital pen. Right?
Exactly. And you've got uses like drawing, and I've heard from a number of customers that when it comes to scientific notation or math or chemistry, any kind of things like that where it's hard to type, you can just write your equations and your diagrams directly on the screen. Right.
And sometimes, maybe in even real estate, you could do documentation signing, right? You could draw things. I mean, there's so many applications that the digital pen is used for, and especially when it's integrated too.
Yep, exactly. So you don't lose it.
Correct.
That's the worst thing to not have it when you need it. Right. And it's also worth mentioning that as a Yoga system that flips all the way around, we've built something in that we're calling the lift hinge. Okay. So when you take the screen back, it actually lifts the system up a little bit in the back, so you get a better typing angle. And it also lifts the back of the system off the ground a little bit so you get better airflow and better cooling.
Oh, that's very cool. So more comfortable typing if you're typing for a longer session.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Very good.
And we all spend a lot of time
on
our computers these days.
I hear you.
And speaking of, last two things in this sort of overall design category that we want to talk about, of course, is a backlit keyboard.
Correct.
Right? And a built-in fingerprint reader.
Okay.
Right? So instead of having to type your passwords in, it acts much more like a phone.
Okay.
Just tap your finger on the fingerprint reader and you're logged in instantly.
And the fingerprint reader is actually integrated on the power button. So all you need to do to activate the fingerprint reader would be just do a light tab on the power button and you're in.
You're good to go.
Cool. Very good. Kevin, tell us what's under the hood.
All right, the important stuff, the fun, geeky stuff under the hood. I think everyone's going to be really pleasantly surprised with the amount of power and features that we've been able to pack into this. So we've got the latest AMD 5000 series supporting both R3, R5, and R7, as well as the AMD integrated graphics that goes along with that.
Okay, and I know AMD graphics is quite good. You
It
know,
is indeed.
based on customer feedback, I know the graphics on the AMD is performing quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you've got your choices as you go up in power, like we said, the R3, the R5, and the R7. And what comes along with that is something that's also, we think, very important to a lot of our customers is upgradable dual channel memory.
Ah, in a 13-inch device.
Indeed.
Wow.
Indeed.
And how does that work?
So we've got configuration in this with some memory on the board soldered down. And depending on the configuration and what our customers choose, that can either be 4 gigs on the board with an additional 4 gig DIMM
And that would be an 8 gig on an R3 or an R5.
Right.
So that really means even at 8 gig you could get dual channel performance.
Exactly, exactly. And as you move up to the R5 and the R7, you can get configurations that either have 8 gigabytes soldered directly to the board with another upgradable 8
Right.
gigs, or at the very highest end, models that have 8 gigs soldered down onto the motherboard and an additional 8 gigs. So 16 gigs of dual channel memory.
You know, I think dual channel memory is something that's that's quite important because it really helps, and you can, you know, as an end user, you can really feel the performance difference when you're using a single channel memory device versus a dual channel memory. So I'm so glad that, you know, in a small form factor like a 13-inch device, you know, that we're able to offer an upgradable memory configuration for our customers.
Right.
So they can take advantage of that improved performance.
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of other things that are upgradable, this comes with up to a 512 gig M.2 SSD, but that is, of course, upgradable as well.
Sure. Sure. How about the ports? I want to
Okay.
know about the ports.
So, obviously, things are moving in the computer industry towards USB-C. But the fact of the matter is, we all know there are a lot of things out there that still need classic USB-A ports, so we don't make you choose. So, 2 USB-C ports.
That supports power delivery, charging, data, and video out.
Correct, correct. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
Okay.
But we also give you 2 USB-A ports, the classic type, as well as an HDMI 2.0 port, and something that's pretty rare in this size of machine, a full-sized SD card slot.
That is so cool. Because I know I have a camera that actually uses a full SD, so I always have to use that adapter to be able to connect to a USB-A and get, you know, access to my pictures. So I'm able to use a full SD. How about a micro SD?
Every micro SD card I've ever bought comes with an adapter, and they're very, very common and very inexpensive. So if you had the smaller one, you couldn't use the big one. But if you have the big one, you can use the smaller one.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And to sort of round out the ports, we have audio headphone jack, as well as a Kensington lock slot for security when you need that.
Now, let me ask you this. So hybrid work, you know, customers being able to connect to external monitors, how many external monitors can we support?
Okay, that's a great story, and you raise a great point that you certainly can use a USB-C dock or hub with this, but you don't have to get the external monitor support. So we've got 2 different ways to attach through USB-C, 2 of those, both of which support display out and HDMI. Right? So now, just to be clear, if you had 2 external USB-C displays, that's also how the system gets power. So one of those would have to be a monitor of a type that delivers power through USB-C, but a lot of them do nowadays. Or you could connect one through USB-C, either directly if your monitor natively supports it, or through a USB-C to HDMI or DisplayPort adapter, and then one directly to the HDMI port. So there's a lot of flexibility, but no matter how you choose to connect it, you can get 2 4K displays in
Plus
addition.
the native
exactly.
display. Okay, so that's really 3 displays in a way then, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And lastly, but not leastly, let's talk about the audio. We have a built-in headphone microphone jack.
Of course.
Right? Because
we didn't get rid of that.
We did not get rid of that.
Not yet.
As well as speakers here on either side of the keyboard that are Dolby audio speakers.
Okay. So I have tried the audio on this device, and it really sounds fantastic. I think, you know, I really believe that Dolby audio makes a big difference in terms of,
it absolutely
especially
does.
with video conferencing, you know, and being able to hear, and also, you know, with the 2 microphones, you're really able to get your point across during meetings, you know, without really getting close to the device itself.
Yeah, exactly. You want to present yourself well to the people on the other side of the call.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about construction, engineering, and durability. So there is something special about this device in terms of durability, and I'm sure you're going to touch upon that. So take us there.
All right, so we've talked about the inside, we've talked about some of the productivity features. Let's talk about how it's made, right? So we've got an aluminum top cover, right? So very durable.
And one thing I want to mention here is the thickness of the aluminum cover.
Yeah.
So because we built, durability into this product, customers will feel that this is really a thick aluminum to make sure that we have reinforced top cover for durability purposes.
Right. Absolutely, very important, because that takes the brunt of a lot of the impact if anything happens to the laptop.
How about MIL-SPEC?
Okay.
Does 13w Yoga support MIL-SPEC?
It does indeed. So the testing that we do internally is primarily stuff that we've come up with, looking at years, again, of how people use laptops in the real world. But there are also external standards that we test against. Some of those are regulatory, Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. But there's also a specific set of tests known as MIL-SPEC that are defined by the U.S. Department of Defense. And there are many, many, many different categories and subtests. And we test the 13W for 9 of those categories, or methods as they're known, in 17 different subtests.
Can you tell us a little bit about the type of test we do as part of the MIL-SPEC?
Sure. The categories, the top level categories of the methods are things like high temperature, low temperature, temperature shock, like taking it cold to hot, hot to cold very quickly, altitude, vibration, sand and dust, right? A lot of standard tests that are designed, as they say, to test the performance of the system in extreme circumstances.
Okay. How about the hinges and the ports?
Right. Those are absolutely reinforced.
Okay.
Like we said, the hinges are specifically designed to take the impact damage of being dropped, right? And they are also tested for tens of thousands of open and close cycles, right? Because these live in the real world. People use them. They open and close them multiple times a day. And same with the ports. There's specific reinforcement inside the ports so that accidents happen. Things get stuck. Things get pulled, right? We don't want any normal day-to-day type activity to break this system in the long term. So hence why we reinforce the ports.
Wow. Very good.
So speaking of how thin and light the overall system is, we mentioned this is a 13.3-inch Yoga form factor, so it's got the hinge that spins 360 degrees around. But even despite all of that functionality we built in, the engineering team was still able to bring this in at 17.6 millimeters, and it starts, depending on configuration, at 3.19 pounds.
That's fairly light.
Exactly. Great. Exactly. And as we talked about before, we've been able to pack a lot into this system. So we've got the standard webcam is a full HD, a 1080p
Thank
webcam.
God, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's taken a while for everybody to get there, but with the prevalence of video conferencing these days, certainly very important. And it has a built-in camera shutter, a physical shutter that enables you to block the camera and turn it off when you don't want to be using the camera.
That gives a lot of peace of mind, especially the mechanical side of the front camera shutter.
Peace of mind and physical security.
No more Post-it notes, huh?
Exactly. It's also worth mentioning that there are options on some models for a world-facing camera. And what we mean by that is when you flip the system around, right, and you're using it as a tablet, the standard camera is pointed towards you.
Right.
Right. But there are a lot of use cases. We talked about people in the field, like real estate folks, or we've talked to insurance adjusters, students,
high school students, teachers, college students, right?
Right.
You could actually shoot photos with that world-facing camera, as well as shoot videos, right? Because that's not something you would do with a front-facing camera. So
right, exactly. So you've got that camera facing outward from you, hence the world-facing camera. So that's an option as well.
That's very useful.
And let's get down to some of the engineering that went into the construction of this. So knowing that given the design and the use case of this, as we mentioned, being used in the field, with students, that sort of thing, it needed to be very durable, very reliable. Correct. So it has reinforced hinges, reinforced ports. It is specifically tested for desk height drop, right? Not just some random number that we made up, but we actually looked at the standard height of desks in offices and schools, and we're testing to that height for the drop test. And it also includes a spill-resistant keyboard.
Oh, that comes in handy.
It does indeed.
So if you spill water on the on the keyboard, then the spill resistance will definitely help.
It absolutely will. And lastly, but not leastly, let's wrap all this up by talking about some of the connectivity.
Okay, that's important.
Yes.
Because I want to be. So my question is, can I take this device anywhere?
So, of course, all models support the latest Wi-Fi 6 standard, 802.11ax, more commonly known as Wi-Fi 6. So the throughput and the connectivity that you're going to have in most standard home, office, or say coffee shop type environments is going to be absolutely best in class. But if you're not in a home, office, or anywhere else
on
with
the
Wi-Fi,
road, for instance.
exactly. This system, the 13w Yoga, will also be available with optional CAT16 4G connectivity.
CAT16, that should be sufficient for download and upload speeds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
All right. So we got a great machine here.
You know,
a really great machine.
It seems like we built, we really built a lot of features into a 13-inch device, right? So
Indeed.
I hope our customers find value in this device, right? From its flexibility, the versatility in terms of the form factor, excellent video conferencing experience with the full HD camera, with the mechanical, shutter. And the 4G LTE connectivity, it sounds like a all-in-one solution with 13w Yoga.
Indeed, with all the modes that you get with it, all of, as you say, all of the ports, connectivity, everything that we built into this. I think whether you work in a corporate office, whether you're a small and medium business, whether you're in the field, whether you're a student, an educator, primary education, secondary education, there's a lot here in the 13w Yoga to make all of our customers
all right.
very happy.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for your time today. We're very excited about this product.
And for those who are looking to buy one of these, when is it going to be available?
Well, it's available now on Lenovo.com.
Excellent. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.